on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm starting recording. All right.
Okay, well, hi, everyone. This is Women and Children Outreach Program. We're going to be interviewing Jan, the CEO of Genesis, and just a little background information on Jan. She has been an activist for efforts to end violence against women for 28 years. She overlooks Genesis' internal and external operations, as well as finding community education. She also was recognized as a national expert on dynamics and effects of domestic violence. She conducts keynote presentations, training, and workshop programs for numerous local, state, and national conferences and corporations. She's a recipient of numerous awards for her leadership and community service. Some are the FBI's Director's Community Leadership Award, Mosaic Family Services Champion of Human Rights Award, the Mary Harriman Community Leadership Award, and the Mora Award. So thank you for joining us. We're so grateful to have you here with us. Let's start off.
Great. Thank you for having me. And I'm so proud of this new organization. Thank you so much.
I think Fatima, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So just to start off the interview, we kind of wanted to, talk about you a little bit and ask you kind of how you got into this line of work and what inspired you to kind of join Genesis.
Sure. Thank you. I'd love to tell that story. I tell it as often as I possibly can, because for me, it was, I don't know, the hand of God is all I can explain it. Seriously. So I was a stay-at-home mom. I have never experienced domestic violence. I didn't think about it. If I thought about it, I was just sure it happened to somebody who didn't look like me, whatever that is, somebody who didn't live near me, wherever that is. And so I was, in addition to being a stay-at-home Kool-Aid mom of the block, I was also a member of an organization that required so many volunteer hours, right, every single year. And I had had a terrible sign up the year before, took too much time, and it was just too hard. And so I started going through the brochure as I started signing up that next year. I started looking for the easy way out. Well, I'm a firm believer, if you want to make God laugh, look for the easy way out in life. There just is no such thing. And so I thought I had found it, right? And I was on my way to sign up for it. And I was in a hurry, I remember, because I didn't want my girlfriends to find it and they'd sign up and it would all be full or something. But I had actually broken a fingernail, one of my acrylic fingernails at the time. And I think I want to do good in the community, but I think my nails ought to look nice. So I whipped into this salon just blocks from where I was going. And as I sat there waiting for the manicurist to help me, a magazine just kind of slid in my lap, and it said on the cover, it just said, every 9 seconds in this country a woman is assaulted, that 1 out of every 3 women you pass will know domestic violence on an ongoing basis. And it went on to read these different statistics, and I ended up reading an article that was written about a couple. I think she was a lawyer and he was a dentist, but they were very professional people. And he beat her severely because dinner was late. And you know what? I was just offended. I was just like, what does that even mean? Somebody hits me because dinner is late. And so I read on about it and how it happened and all about it. And I did get my nail fixed, but by the time I got to sign up for that next year's volunteer shift, I forgot all about the easy way out. And I literally found Genesis. I closed my eyes to the violence intervention section and stuck my finger down on Genesis. Never heard of it, but that's where I went. Off I went. And I really thought, Fatima, that when I got there, that somehow these women would not look like I do. I didn't know their children would look like mine. What I found was that victims of domestic violence, women primarily, and primarily women, but also that's all we work with at Genesis. I thought maybe they'd look differently, but you know what? Battered women are tall and short and fat and thin and black and white, Hispanic and other. The only common thread I can find among all women who seek our services is that she was in a relationship with an abusive partner. So I ended up volunteering. I was the Tuesday morning volunteer. I rocked babies. I made Kool-Aid down there. I answered the hotline. And what I actually got to sit as a non-voting member on the board of directors. And one day, the president of the board came and said, we need new leadership. We need a new CEO. She needs to be able to work the crowd and raise money. Out of my mouth shoots, oh my gosh, I think that's me. And I mean, I had thought, if I ever could get to work there, I know I'd have to go back and get a master's. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, but maybe I'd be a counselor. Oh my goodness, the last thing I need to be is a counselor, right? Because I'd be like, hey, he's a jerk. Get out of there now. Circle the wagons. Run for your life, which is not a very good therapeutic approach, by the way. And so the smartest thing about me is I can hire the smartest people. I surround myself with the smartest people I can find, from communications to counseling to advocacy to every step of the way. So anyway, I signed up. I never looked back. I moved into that office, never having hired or fired or read a financial sheet, had no strategic plan for what that agency should be. But I have to tell you, I just kind of sat back and looked to see, okay, what's a roadblock? What is a roadblock that keeps a woman from success? And I thought, well, she's going to need a job. Well, she can't get a job if she doesn't have childcare. So we put childcare on site. And she can't, even if she has childcare, if she leaves her children in the school in which they were, dad can come along, check those kids out, and she never lays eyes on them again. And so we put school on site. We knew pretty quickly that a short stay in the shelter was not long enough. And so we built long-term transitional housing. And we knew that only a small portion of the battered population ever seek shelter. And so we opened our non-residential center for women and children who still need the same counseling, information, referral. They just don't need a place to sleep. Another roadblock, which was huge, is the lack of access to civil legal representation. If she has no money, if he has been, had financial power and control over everything, and she cannot afford a divorce or get a divorce, and he tries to take her children, she's going home. It doesn't matter how much we counsel. If the threat is you will lose your children, and it happens every single day, then everything else is for naught. So we put legal services on site. Now that sounds like, I said that kind of quickly, but that's 30 years worth of Genesis, right? Because we have to fundraise for every dollar. We don't charge anything for our services, but the strategic plan became, okay, what's the next roadblock? We don't speak that language. Okay, let's get somebody in there that speaks that language. She has emotional pet, and let's have pets there, or let's, whatever we can do to find a way to say yes. I'm sorry, I don't remember your question, but boy, did you start me off, right?
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. My initial question was what inspired you, and I think
all of it. Yeah.
Perfectly. And I, something that you touched on that was really important is that you said that, a woman is the women that are being abused. They could look like just your average everyday person. They're not. A victim, or sometimes people think that
it's women you pass on your campus every single day are in these relationships, and they're embarrassed. They just don't want people to know, or they think it's their fault, or he promises it'll never happen again. I mean, there are a million reasons, but I don't want any of us to think it couldn't happen to us. Even, like I've been married a long time, but what would happen if I remarried or something happened to Steve and I was in another relationship? My life isn't over yet. I'm not safe. I'm not out of the woods. I am in this relationship out of the woods, but, none of us are safe. That really is the truth.
Right. So moving on, we wanted to kind of discuss, your role as a CEO in terms of any challenges you had once you did go into join Genesis. I know you mentioned roadblocks. Could you just discuss that a little bit more?
Well, sure. If I understand your question, I think I was looking for roadblocks for their success,
right.
But I think it was my naivete that that made me think I could do this. I mean, I didn't, like I say, I didn't have a grand plan or a whatever. I just came in the office and spread out the financial sheets and looked at it and said, red numbers are bad and black ones are good. I mean, I just had to pull myself up by my bootstraps, but it was very important to me because I was so, like I say, offended that this happens. And I really do think if it happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. And
Right.
when you know, Fatima, that domestic violence against women is the leading cause of injury to women in the United States, more than rapes, car wrecks, and muggings combined, how do you turn your back on it?
Right.
How do you walk away from it? So I just put one foot in front of the other, and I hired somebody who was really great, and I went to conferences and learned that program, and I just kept plugging away until here we are. I don't know that that's a very sophisticated answer.
No, it is. And it's really inspiring that, you kind of work through those roadblocks. Do you have any advice for women who are, hoping to start a nonprofit in the future or want to get into this line of work?
I do. I absolutely do. And I think we all ought to find something that makes us jump out of bed in the morning, seriously, because life is too short. You're never going to make enough money, no matter where you think you're going to work. But what I refer to it is find your field of fascination. What is the fire in your belly? So I lost my mom to breast cancer when she was very young. I was a child. And why I am not out there racing for the cure, I don't know. Why am I not putting this passion into it? So sometimes even if it's very obvious what you think you should be doing, I didn't find this passion until I was 40 years old.
Right.
But, looking back, everything I did just kind of, well, I could do that. And yeah, I did that and I can figure that out. I mean, I didn't have my eye on that ball, but I guess somebody did, but it was like, if you can find what you are so passionate about that it's going to be contagious and it's going to make other people want to come along with you on it, that's when you know you're in the right spot. That's when you know. I also recommend find who's doing it well and don't recreate the wheel. If you don't know exactly what you want to do, excuse me, go try on the hat. I volunteered for 3 years before I jumped in head first, Try on the hat, see what it feels like. What would you do right? What would you do differently? Does it need to be with a different population? Does it need to be in a different part of town or a different part of our community or a different part of the country? Like I say, see who's doing it well. I have learned every single day, not only from my staff on how to do better at my job, but I've learned from other people on whose shoulders I stand. We all experienced the incredible loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I have the right now to have a credit card in my name. And that may sound weird to you guys, but in my married life, I did not have that right. I had to have my husband sign on it. She fought for me. And you know what? I'm standing on the shoulders of, she's a little tiny, but I'm standing on the shoulders of greatness. And there are thousands of other women. We recognized in August the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. As it turns out, it's white women's rights to vote, because then the states got all really crazy about it, not granting everybody protections until 1965. But I think of women like Alice Paul. She didn't even live long enough to get the vote, right?
Right.
But that did not diminish her passion. I won't live long enough to end domestic violence. I know I won't. But that doesn't slow me down a bit. And what I'm hoping is young women just like you will stand on my shoulders and say, I'm offended and I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not always just, it's about the influence that you leave, the impact that
I absolutely agree.
Smallest thing. So moving on more towards, the issue of domestic violence itself, what are some prevalent issues that you see in DFW area regarding domestic violence? And how does Genesis kind of approach the issue?
Well, do you mean like service gaps, or what do you mean like what I see in DFW?
Yeah. So service gaps, what are the needs? Do you see a lot of women?
Yes. Right. Yesterday, I got a report that, and I know it's COVID and I know we've had to shut down many of our non-residential services, I have 600 people on the waiting list. 600 women who say, I need help. And I have to say, I don't have anything right now. That makes me stay awake at night because I want to go raise more money. I want to, oh, actually I am. We are building a new building that will help us double the amount of non-residential clients we have. That's what we all have to do. There's never enough services, but here's the thing. The mayor came out with a report yesterday talking about how, there just aren't enough safe shelter beds. First of all, shelter beds are not the only answer. I feel like abuse is never going to stop until abusers stop abusing. But you can build beds and you can build beds and you can build beds and it won't be enough. We as a community have to come together and say, wherever that intersection is, let's say you are a doctor. Well, I can tell you, most of the women who come into the ED will not call a shelter and have not called the police. So the onus is on you to make a difference in their life. Or maybe you are going to be, a leader in your faith community, right? Well, women may come there and talk. And so it's wherever we intersect, we have the obligation to say, are you safe? What do I see? Oh, what do I see in the community is not enough people understand it. Not enough people blame the perpetrator. Not enough people blame him. Instead, they blame her. Why didn't she get out? Couldn't be that bad or she'd have left. She lied about the date. So did she really get hurt? She doesn't have any marks on her. I mean, I'm like, what do you care? What do you care? What mark she has on her? He beat her. But I do this example when I'm training, like in journalism classes or something. And it's like, John beat Mary because dinner was late, okay? The next day, the headlines are, Mary got beaten because dinner was late. And then the next night was, Mary got beaten and then Mary's a battered woman. So that transition, we only saw John in the first headline, right? And at the end, Mary is defined by what happened to her.
Right.
So there's a lack of understanding of holding accountable abusers. We need to move the needle on the conversation from why didn't she get out to why did he do it? So I see gaps around that. I see funding gaps. A lot of people, want bright and fancy, but I think it's the dichotomy of our city that makes us who we are, that we have zero tolerance for violence against women. That, I always say we can't have a great state-of-the-arts district if women, primarily women, are being sold into the degradation of the adult entertainment industry. And I even hate that phrase. What does that mean, adult entertainment?
Right.
It is prostituting her. It's objectifying her. Let's call it what it is, right? I'm on a roll today. I had a rough day, a rough morning, so I'm on a tear today. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question. Not enough money, not enough services, too many people, not enough understanding. And we're just going to keep chipping away. We're going to keep chipping away and we're not quitting until it's fixed.
For sure. Yeah. And I definitely agree with you in the point that you said about, sometimes when women do come, it's like, oh, are you lying? Or that's like kind of the first impression that they have, or you're making this up, which is really sad to say. In terms of other barriers, what are some legal barriers about domestic violence? I know the legal aspect of domestic violence isn't talked about that much. What do you think the legal system is lacking in terms of protecting the victim, and what are they doing right?
Yeah, no, I have to say in Texas, we're in pretty good shape because we have fought for 30, 40 years down in Austin at every legislative session to have rules or laws made regarding protective orders and emergency protective orders, and even things like letting her out of her lease. Think about this. The law previously to the last session said that if you live in an apartment and police come to your apartment, you can be evicted. Well, that sounds good if you've got a drug guy down the street from you, down the block from you. But what if you're battered and you call the police and you're evicted? What are you going to do? I can't be homeless. I'm just not going to call the police. So every single session, we seem to kind of untwist what's happened the session before, but we've been very progressive in this state about laws. Now, how are they interpreted? By judges, we've got a problem there. How are they interpreted by the local sheriff or the police department in your city or county? We've got problems there. One of the big things that I've been working on, I think is one of the biggest gaps, is that it is against state and federal law for someone who is subject of a protective order or has have a domestic violence conviction against them. They are not allowed any kind of firearms, can't own it, buy it, borrow it, have it in their possession, right? But nobody's taken them up. Nobody's taken them up. I mean, literally at the time of the judge grants the protective order, he or she should say, okay, bring me all your guns. But unfortunately, like I was speaking to one judge and I said, I've noticed you haven't collected any guns. Help me understand. And she says, I ask every single person in my court, do you have a gun? And they tell me no. And so they go on their way. And I'm like, well, Your Honor, with all respect, he's a liar, right? He's a criminal, or he wouldn't be in your court in the first place. Right. So why are we just relying on that? And then somebody else came up with a thing. Well, if he will just come and turn in guns, I won't make him do community service or pay a fine. Well, so he gets rewarded, or we'll give him a gift card. I said, give her a gift card. She's the one with the broken nose. What are you talking about? So anyway, I think that's a big thing, is the way it's interpreted. I was up in Collin County doing a training of young judges, I guess, and we were in a courtroom of the Collin County courthouse. And I asked the presiding judge of that court, she was just being nice and hosting us. And I said, hey, we're really kind of working on this. How do you all handle in Collin County the removal of firearms from people who are in violation of state and federal laws? She goes, oh, I'm going to tell you something right now. She said, the good voters of Collin County have no desire for me to even ask about their guns. And I was like, no. I'm not talking about, my husband likes to hunt. I'm talking about federal prosecution right. of an offender. She goes, I don't care what you say, and I don't care what it is. I'm not going to ask anybody about their firearms. And I'm like, okay. Wow. Well, I wish I voted in Collin County is all the recourse I had, but that's just, you have to let your voices and your votes be heard. And this year, more so than ever. And I'm just not talking about the top where there is misogyny and bigotry. I'm talking about who's the sheriff of your county, because that's who's rolling out to the, apartment complex. What is their opinion on it? What does your city council stand for? And man, now's the time to ask them. I mean, I'm calling up people and saying, hey, where do you stand on domestic violence? And no other time will they take my call, right? But now in an election year, super happy. One of the things that has to happen nationally, here's another gap, is that in oh my gosh, what was it? The first time, 95 maybe, the first, the creation of the Violence Against Women Act. And then it bipartisan, I think it was Vice President Biden who proposed it and was there at the signing of that. And so, 5 years later, it was reauthorized, bipartisan, no big deal. Whatever president was in the White House, they couldn't wait to sign it. There was no objection. It was done again. And then we start rolling into, it should have been, I can't remember how these years fall, but maybe like 2013. We've been without it since 2013. It funds shelters, it funds courts. And because we can't get on the same page across the aisle, legislators looked up and said, wow, that thing is flying through. I think I'll stick my immigration issues on it. I think I'll do my LGBTQ issues on it. I think I'll stick my Native American women issues on this. And all of a sudden it stopped. Now, Congress has, funded these things in a continuing resolution, but it creates the Office on Violence Against Women, and we don't even have a director. We have not had a Senate-confirmed director in this administration to run that. And that's who allocates all the money. So anyway, I think when we talk about laws, we have to look at federal, we have to look at state laws, and we have to look at who we are electing to enforce those laws.
For sure. Yeah, that's really sad. Everyone go and vote. I think that's how you can create a change, like you said.
Let your voice and vote be heard. Absolutely. Stand up and don't just yap about it. Light a light instead of just screaming at the darkness,
Right. Yeah, that's how you can, make some change happen. And then moving on, what are some stigmas that you see about surrounding domestic violence?
Well, certainly it's her fault. She's not telling the truth. It only happens to poor women. Must not be educated. Maybe she's not documented to be in this country or whatever it is. The stigma around it. And I just got off the phone with a woman in a very affluent part of Dallas, and she just doesn't, is too embarrassed to let people know her husband is this terrible guy. So she will protect him a little while longer and doesn't want the police coming out there in front of her house. I mean, I don't want police in front of my house either,
Right.
but I think there is so much shame that surrounds sexual assault and intimate partner violence for women that somehow they brought it on themselves, that they are somehow lesser of a person because this was perpetrated against them. So yeah, there's still a lot of stigma around the issue.
Definitely agree. So how has COVID-19 affected just domestic violence rates?
It's really gone through the roof. I'm saying this anecdotally because of course we won't have data on this for another year or so, but the problem is that not only has it increased because now maybe he lost his job, he's home in the house, and being quarantined with your abuser doesn't give you the opportunity. You can't call for help because he's right there, right? You can't leave the house. We know that he's triggered by, in fact, it was in maybe August or early September, a man was home, same thing, lost his job. I think he was an architect or something like that. And the wife and kids were in the house, and he shot all three of them because they were making too much noise.
Wow.
They're making too much noise in the house, so he kills them. COVID has had a tremendous toll. Now, we have seen an uptick in calls, but not to come in. I think when women are able to call out for help again, when the all clear bell sounds, we're going to see a tsunami of requests for services. I really do. We've even heard, listen to this, Fatima, we've even heard of people using COVID as a choice of weapon. He makes me wash my hands until they bleed. He won't let me wear a face mask. He threatens it. He coughs in my face. Now, how's that for thinking on your feet? I mean, I don't know how they come up with all the ways to abuse us, but this one, that's just nasty, right?
For sure. That is really horrible. And then, now that we've kind of touched on a little bit of the different aspects that, Genesis does and domestic violence, I kind of want to close the interview by asking you, how can UTD students contribute to this cause or, kind of help in any way possible?
Right. Those are the questions I love to hear. Well, you're doing it right now. Number one, you're doing it right now. You're raising the level of awareness on your campus, men and women that need to know this information. For every one out of every three women you pass, there are these little boys who grew up in it, that they're still, remembering dad or stepdad and how they couldn't get.
It's the cycle too.
Absolutely. So men and women need to hear this. So maybe this is October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We've got on our purple, I see. But you know what? Have a march or a table in the student center, or put out brochures, or have a whole plan that the arts School of the Arts does a play, or just bombard it with the news, because most people don't have the ears to hear it like I didn't until it impacted me. And that's when I went down as a volunteer. That's another thing. Do a drive on campus. We would love to have you guys do, office supply drive, baby supply drive, canned food drive, because anything you do like that, we don't have to pay for. We can use our income for counseling and advocacy. So there's lots that you can do. We have a volunteer coordinator that would love to coordinate with you. And when the COVID lifts, come on down and cook a meal. Come on down and play with our kids. They just want kind people. They want to be around kind people. But thank you for having me today. I know we've run out of time, but I really appreciate.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So I guess now that we're finished, just if anyone has any questions, they can unmute themselves, or text on the chat and ask.
Oh, sure.
Jan.
Yeah. I also forgot this one other thing. Go to our website. genesisshelter.org. There's so much great information, how we're working with COVID. Come shop at our benefit thrift store. They'll tell you all about that, or donate to our benefit thrift store, or how to help a friend, how to safety plan for yourself. So there's lots of good information there. genesisshelter.org.
Alrighty. Does anyone have any questions? Or if you're too shy, you can always just send it on the chat too. We'll give it a few minutes.
Sure, sure. The shelter does operate in a secret location, and so we wouldn't just throw that out there for anybody who wants to volunteer. But it is a beautiful building, and I know you who volunteered there? Aisha did?
Yeah, so me and Aisha, yeah. We're actually in talks with Lottie right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it.
Stuff, yeah.
Good. She's great.
Yeah.
But did you go to the shelter? Did you all go to the shelter, or just the non-res?
We were able to go to the shelter. We did the court partnership. So we went down to the court and did that.
That is another great way to help. Go and sit on the bride's side of the courtroom, because when there are volunteers there, you don't have to know her. You don't have to know the case. But let me tell you, the judge doesn't fall asleep, and we get protective orders when we never would have, when there are people supporting her, because usually there's no one on her side of the courtroom.
For sure, yeah. And I think what Lottie has told me is we're trying to move that virtually. She's trying to get that via Zoom so that we can help them still even during this time. So I think we have a question on the chat.
Yeah.
So someone, I think Ariba says, what are the effects of domestic violence on children?
That's a wonderful question, and I'm sorry that we hadn't gotten to that before now. But to me, when Dallas Police, and I don't know where you all are, well, I don't know the stats there, but Dallas Police will respond to 20,000 calls every single year, 20,000, and those are the tip of the iceberg that actually call the police. But with every one they go out to, they write the name of the perpetrator, the name of the victim. But the true victims, in my opinion, whose names are not on those reports, are the hundreds of thousands of children who watch and listen when mom is terrified and dad is terrifying. 75% of all men who beat their wives beat their children. They are at high risk of continuing, as you mentioned, continuing that generational cycle of violence. They try on the hat of the victim, I want to help mom, and then they get kicked as well. They try on the hat of the abuser, which feels so disrespectful and such a violation of their relationship with mom, but at least they don't get hurt as well. So again, they're learning a language of abuse that they can break that cycle, and certainly we work lots with our kids at Genesis to help break that generational cycle of violence. But truthfully, it's a trauma that they experience that will stay with them the rest of their lives. They don't have to be directed by that. It doesn't have to direct their lives, but it will always be a part of their lives.
For sure. That's a wonderful answer. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question. So, are you guys able to hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So, I actually know someone who was a victim of domestic abuse, and when she called the police, finally, they actually took her to a secret location, and like her husband didn't know about her whereabouts for like a while, and so my question is, are you guys kind of like, you mentioned that you guys have a secret location. Are you guys kind of like, do you guys come in as, like, do the victims call you guys, or are you kind of like an emergency, like?
All of the above. All of the above. So every time a police officer responds to a domestic violence call, they have to issue what's called a blue card, which is a blue card. And on it lists Genesis, Family Place, Salvation Army. And so they might get that from the police, right? I've seen women who come with that information all pulled out except our phone number stuck between the lining and the sole of her shoe. It doesn't mean she's coming right away. But we also get references from school counselors. We also get references from doctors' offices. We encourage doctors to, even for a well woman check, to have on that clipboard when you sign in, is anybody hurting you? We are training hospital workers and first responders to be able to ask the kinds of questions. She may drive her own car there. She may come in the back of a squad car. No friends can drop her off. If she needs public transportation, we can pay for that. We can pay for a cab to go get her. We do not go in and get her. We won't go into that situation because it is so dangerous. But we'll definitely talk about how to get out and get out safely. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, or the police can call and say, I have a woman here now. And then we still would talk to her because we don't want somebody forcing her into, it's got to be her decision. She's got to want to do it or it's not going to work at all. But again, I mentioned she's in the most danger, or maybe I didn't, when she's leaving. And so that's why we're in a secret location and we don't give out the address. We don't tell anybody where we are. We tell her to, disconnect her phone, don't even let the kids be able to describe where we are because, we don't want dad coercing that out of them. But you're doing it as well by going to our website. Nobody even has to talk to you. They go to our website if they need help and it is available 24/7. It really is. So we find them in all different ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. I hope that's what you were wanting to know.
Yeah, no, because I was just like, I thought, because this happened a couple years ago, and the entire time I was like, so where is, like, who's providing those services?
Yeah.
And at first I thought it was like the police department, but it makes sense that it's women's shelters.
It is. And there's one you all are in Collin County, I think. I'm pretty sure you're in the Collin County. There's one called Hope's Door up there. Hope's Door New Beginning, I think is what it's called. And it's a great agency. And any one of us, like if you called Hope's Door and said, my friend needs help, we would talk to her. And then if she said, well, I live down the street and works across the street, they would transfer her to us. We all work together. So in this field. So, or if we they could call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. There's even a chat line there. So you don't even have to, if you'd rather text or whatever, you can still find a place in another city, another county. We work with people who will help you with transportation. You get to my place, but you have no money to go home to your family in Kansas City. We actually work with Families to Freedom, who will either fly you there or get you bus tickets or give you gas to get there. So we network with, agencies all over town, but the secret location, is us or Hope's Door, New Beginning.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Of course.
Alrighty, does anyone else have any questions? Alrighty, well, if not, thank you so much for having us today, Jan.
I love being on it. I love talking to young women. I hope I lit a fire under somebody because I'm getting tired and I need you. I need you to come march with us in whatever way that looks. And don't ever give it away. I know you're trying to get off, but one more thing, okay? I mean, we watch so many reality shows where we hang our hopes on a bachelor's rose, or we get on TV and say we're the biggest losers, or I see women who give up their own relationships and their dreams, and nobody gave these dreams to us. We fought for them every step of the way, and we're still fighting, right? We are still fighting for our rights, equal pay for equal work, and on and on. Do not give that away. Too many people fought and died doing this. Don't diminish it. Don't give it away, and get on board. Come on this bus because there's a lot of marching we got left to do. So I look forward to you all drinking the Kool-Aid and joining the march.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. You're such an inspiration to all of the women. And yeah, we hope to follow in your footsteps, hopefully. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, check out Genesis' website. I think she also left a link right here. I think it was about exploring the impact of the child's life.
Oh, that was good that she put that in the chat line. Watch that YouTube. It's a cartoon, really short. But Amy, will you go ahead and put our website back up in the chat box, please?
Sure. Yeah.
There you go. That was that fast. Yeah.
And this this session, this interview is going to be recorded. So, if anyone wants to, they missed the first part, they can, check out the link tree that we have up on our bio and watch the beginning, or anyone who hasn't joined. But besides that, thank you so much for everyone who attended. Thank you, Jan, for joining us today. And yeah, thank you all. I'm just reading the chat, but have a good rest.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Sorry, I keep coming in and out on my laptop, so that's why I'm over here with Yassine.
No,
but
I'm
it was so
happy
lovely meeting you.
So nice to meet you all as well. Thank you for having